Hey, my name is Christian, and today I'd like to talk to you about something that's very serious and very dear to my heart, and it's what I study every day, and it's cancer. Now, cancer is an umbrella term for over 200 different diseases, which all have one thing in common, and that is they all are made up of, this disease is made up of cells that do not stop multiplying. It's uncontrolled growth, and these cells grow and grow and then eventually spread throughout the body, and unfortunately, more times than not, ends up killing the patient. And so for decades, scientists have been trying to identify vulnerabilities in cancer to try to treat patients, right? And over the last decade, something that has been made very clear is that cancer metabolism is very unique to the cancer cell itself. That is, cancer cells, number one, they love to eat. They're obsessed with food. And number two, they can utilize that food much more differently than healthy cells can. Plus, they use it more efficiently. And so what I study and work on is identifying these unique metabolic features of these cancer cells and trying to exploit them as vulnerabilities in the tumor to use to treat the patient. Now, before we get to all that stuff, it's very important that you understand what I mean by unique metabolism.
Imagine all these lovely people with white shirts are healthy cells, and this dining room is a lung. Now, these cells, just like all the cells in our body, are a tight knit community that will not act without the correct signals, not even eat food right when it's in front of them. When they receive the signal to do so, they will eat together.
Everybody eat.
Man, ¿cuándo vas a cumpleaños?
That's what she said.
That's what's impressing.
Dang.
Okay. I don't know if you can say that.
All is good in this community of healthy cells, but for cancer, all it takes is for one cell to go rogue. Cancer Frank, as we will call him, acquired one very unique feature, and that is that he did not require permission to eat. He did not require the external signals that his healthy cells required in order to eat. And so with his newfound independence, he went on an eating rampage and continued to eat until he kept getting bigger and bigger, and finally he was able to divide in two. Now the two hungry cancer cells went on a rampage and continued eating all the food that was available to all the healthy cells, and the healthy cells were powerless to stop them because they cannot eat until they get the correct signals. And even when they do get the correct signals to eat, there will be no food left because the cancer cells ate all the food. It wasn't long before the healthy community of cells was completely wiped out and replaced by a new community of deadly cancer cells that were eating all the food available until there was nothing left. Now all these strong and powerful cancer cells that arose from this tumor are free to roam other organs in the body. And that is what we call in the cancer world metastasis, which is responsible for over 90% of all cancer-related deaths. Now what happened? What did we just witness? How did healthy Frank, here on the left, go from being a healthy, cooperative, law-abiding citizen of society to a diabolical cancer cell? Well, he was able to fulfill three important metabolic requirements that all cancer cells have to fulfill in order to become successful and proliferate, right? The first metabolic requirement that he was able to fulfill is he was able to accumulate more biomass, right? And that simply means he was able to get bigger. He got fatter the more he ate, and he was able to make more nucleotides, which gave him more DNA. The majority of our cells are made up primarily by proteins, which are made up of amino acids, which he was able to build up by this, his continual eating habits. And finally, he was able to accumulate more fat, right, which are lipids. And finally, when he had the biomass plus the energy, he was able to finally replicate, as we saw in the scene, right? And now he had a cancer buddy, Daphne, cancer Daphne. And then finally, the third metabolic requirement, which every cancer cell has to fulfill in order to be successful, is they have to accommodate for waste, right? The bigger he got, the more energy he was able to accumulate, and the more times he was able to replicate. All those reactions have an end product of waste, right? And that can be very toxic to any cell, cancer, healthy, you name it. So he had to make something called NADPH, and all you need to know about this little molecule is that it removes waste.
And there I am, yours truly, hard at work at the laboratory at Stony Brook Medical Center. Together with my colleagues, I investigate exactly what metabolic pathways cancer cells are using to their advantage. Now, it's important to remember that we're not just studying metabolism because it's essential for a cancer cell to survive, but also because it sets it apart from its healthy neighbors, which makes it an easier target. Once we've identified a pathway which is essential for this cancer cell to grow, we block it using a drug and hopefully cause it not only to stop growing, but to die and leaving the healthy cells unharmed. Specifically, we found recently that a subclass of lung cancer cells are dependent on fat production for growth and survival. When we inhibit their ability to produce fat, we see a decrease in overall cancer growth and an increase in cancer cell death. We observe this phenomenon in cancer cells growing on a dish or in tumors on a mouse. And so I hope now you understand a little bit of what I do every day and why it's so fascinating, right? And hopefully, somewhere down the line, we can figure out how to destroy Cancer Frank before he destroys us.